the unreliable narrator. The flickering fluorescent lights cast long, distorted shadows across the sterile white walls of the interrogation room. A single, fly-specked window offered a sliver of a view, the rusting fire escape of the dilapidated building next door, a canvas for peeling paint and graffiti declarations of love, all bathed in the sickly orange glow of the setting sun. "You said you saw him," Detective Khan stated, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the metal tables separating us. His gaze, intense and unwavering, felt like a physical weight upon me. I swallowed, the dryness in my throat a constant companion these past few days. "Yes," I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. "Who?" "The man from the apartment building." A flicker of something, perhaps disbelief, perhaps something more sinister, crossed Khan's face. "The one that doesn't exist?" "He does exist," I insisted, my voice gaining a touch of defiance. "I saw him, in the hallway, tall, gaunt, with eyes that seemed to glow in the dark." Khan leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Let's start from the beginning, Ms. Sharma. Tell me everything about this non-existent man." "It all started a month ago when I moved into the creaky, old apartment building on Malik Road. The rent was dirt cheap, a steal in Faisalabad's ever-increasing housing market. The building itself, though, was a monument to neglect. Peeling paint adorned the chipped exterior, and the shared hallway reeked of damp and something vaguely metallic. My apartment on the third floor was small but manageable. The windows offered a view of the bustling street below, a constant symphony of honking horns and the shouts of street vendors. It was a far cry from the quietude of my childhood home, but I craved independence, a life free from the watchful eyes of my overbearing family. The first few nights were uneventful. Then the banging started. It came from the apartment at the end of the hall, a unit that, according to the perpetually grumpy Mrs. Khan on the first floor, had been vacant for years. The banging was rhythmic, almost insistent, like someone hammering a nail into the wall. It would start late at night, jolting me awake, and continue for hours. One night, curiosity gnawed at me. I crept out of my apartment, heart hammering against my ribs, and tiptoed towards the source of the noise. The hallway was plunged into near darkness, the single flickering bulb at the far end casting grotesque shadows. As I neared the vacant apartment, the sound stopped abruptly. I stood there, straining to hear anything at all, but there was only an unsettling silence. Suddenly, a gust of cold air swept past me, extinguishing the bulb and plunging the hallway into complete darkness. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled back, knocking over a rusty metal pail that clattered to the floor with a deafening clang. A low growl, guttural and primal, echoed from the open doorway of the vacant apartment. It sent shivers down my spine and rooted me to the spot. Then, silence descended once more, thick and suffocating. I fled back to my apartment, slamming the door shut and bolting it. My heart hammered against my ribs, and I could taste fear metallic on my tongue. The next morning, I sheepishly mentioned the banging to Mrs. Khan. Her rheumy eyes narrowed. "Don't listen to the whispers of the old building, child," she croaked, her voice a raspy whisper. "It's just settling." But the whispers, the doubts, had already begun to take root in my mind. The banging continued sporadically, a constant reminder of the unsettling encounter in the hallway. Then, one night, I saw him. It was late past midnight. I was returning from a late shift at the bakery, my body weary and my mind foggy with exhaustion. As I stepped out of the elevator, a tall, gaunt figure emerged from the shadows at the end of the hallway. He was shrouded in darkness, but his eyes, oh, those eyes, seemed to glow with an unnatural light. A primal scream lodged itself in my throat, choked by the sheer terror that clamped down on my lungs. I froze, momentarily paralyzed by fear. Then, as quickly as he appeared, the figure vanished back into the darkness of the vacant apartment. I stumbled back to my apartment, adrenaline coursing through my veins. My hands shook as I fumbled with the lock, and once inside, I bolted the door, collapsing against it, gasping for breath. The encounter with the figure in the hallway left me shaken. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by a constant state of hypervigilance. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle in the hallway, sent chills down my spine. Desperate for answers, I confided in my friend, Aisha. She, a pragmatist with a healthy dose of skepticism, listened patiently to my tale. When I finished, she raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure you're not just sleep-deprived, Zara?" "I saw him, Aisha," I insisted, my voice trembling slightly. "He was real." Aisha sighed. "Look, the building is old. It could be settling, pipes knocking, anything." Her words offered little comfort. The image of the figure's glowing eyes remained burned into my memory, a constant reminder of the horror I had witnessed. Driven by a mix of fear and a strange compulsion, I decided to investigate further. I started with Mrs. Khan, hoping to glean some information about the vacant apartment. But the old woman's mind seemed clouded with age. Her stories, a jumbled mess of forgotten memories, offered no concrete answers. Frustrated, I turned to the internet. After hours of digging through local forums and historical archives, I stumbled upon a cryptic mention of the building in an old newspaper article. It spoke of a fire that had ravaged the apartment building decades ago, claiming the lives of a young couple. The article ended with a chilling line: "The authorities believe they have recovered all the bodies. However, rumors persist of a presence lingering within the walls." A cold dread washed over me. Could the figure I saw be the restless spirit of one of the fire victims? The encounter with Detective Khan was unsettling. His skepticism, bordering on disbelief, chipped away at my already fragile hold on reality. He questioned my sanity, suggesting the stress of a new job and the loneliness of city life were playing tricks on my mind. His words planted a seed of doubt within me. Was I letting my imagination run wild? Was there even a figure in the hallway? Or was it all a figment of my sleep-deprived mind? The doubt gnawed at me, slowly eroding my confidence. I started questioning everything: my memories, my perceptions. Was I becoming the unreliable narrator of my own story? One night, as I lay awake, tormented by these doubts, the banging started again. This time, it was accompanied by a low, guttural moaning that sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't take it anymore. Driven by a desperate need for answers, I grabbed a flashlight and crept out into the hallway. This time, I wouldn't run. I would confront the source of my fear, once and for all. The hallway floorboards creaked in protest as I inched closer to the vacant apartment, my flashlight beam cutting through the thick darkness. The moaning grew louder, a desperate, mournful sound that tugged at my heartstrings. Taking a deep breath, I braced myself and reached for the doorknob. It was cold and slick, sending a tremor through me. With trembling hands, I turned it. The door creaked open, revealing an inky blackness that seemed to devour the flashlight's weak beam. Hesitantly, I stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and a cloying, metallic stench. The floorboards crunched under my weight, the sounds echoing back at me in an amplified whisper. Suddenly, a gust of cold air swept past me, extinguishing my flashlight. I was plunged into complete darkness, the silence broken only by my ragged breaths. Panic surged through me, a primal fear that threatened to consume me. "Hello," I croaked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Is anyone there?" The only response was a chilling silence, thicker and more oppressive than before. My heart hammered against my ribs, and I could feel tears prickling my eyes. Then, out of the corner of my vision, I saw it. Faint, flickering light. It seemed to beckon me further into the darkness. Curiosity, laced with a healthy dose of fear, propelled me forward. I stumbled through the darkness, guided by the ever-growing light. As I rounded a corner, the source of the light revealed itself. It was a doorway leading to another room, a sliver of light filtering through a crack at the bottom. With a shaky hand, I pushed the door open. The room was bathed in a dim, ethereal glow. In the center, a figure stood shrouded in darkness, its back turned to me. The figure was tall and gaunt, just like the one I had seen in the hallway. My breath hitched in my throat. It was him, the source of the banging, the moaning, the glowing eyes. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice surprisingly steady. The figure remained motionless, its silence deafening. Then slowly it turned around. As our eyes met, a gasp escaped my lips. The figure's face was a grotesque caricature of a human face, contorted in a permanent rictus of pain. Its eyes, however, were the most horrifying feature. They burned with an unnatural light, swirling with a kaleidoscope of colors. But what truly sent shivers down my spine was the recognition dawning in my horror-stricken mind. The face staring back at me wasn't the face of a ghost, a monster, or any other supernatural entity. It was my own face, twisted and contorted in a mirror image of my own fear. The realization hit me like a physical blow. There was no ghost. There never had been. The banging, the moaning, the figure in the hallway, it was all a figment of my own imagination, a manifestation of my deepest fears. The stress of the new city, the isolation of the apartment building, the lack of sleep, it had all conspired to create a terrifying narrative in my mind. But the question remained, why? The answer came in a flash of memory, a memory of a heated argument with my family, a memory of their disapproval of my decision to move out, their veiled threats of me being alone and vulnerable in the big city. A cold dread washed over me. Had I allowed their doubts, their fears, to seep into my subconscious, poisoning my perception of reality? The figure in the room, a reflection of my own twisted self, seemed to confirm my suspicion. Suddenly, a wave of exhaustion washed over me. The fear that had consumed me for days began to recede, replaced by a profound sense of sadness and a burning resentment towards my family. With a shaky breath, I turned to leave the room. The horrifying image of my own face burned into my memory. As I stepped back into the hallway, I noticed a small, dusty photo frame leaning against the wall. Picking it up, I brushed away the cobwebs, revealing a faded picture of a young couple, their faces smiling brightly. A pang of guilt stabbed at me. These were the victims of the fire, their story the inspiration for the chilling newspaper article I had read. My encounter with the ghost had been terrifying, but it had also forced me to confront my own fears and the power of suggestion. The next morning, I sat in a cramped diner across from Aisha, a steaming cup of chai warming my hands. I recounted the events of the previous night, the terrifying revelation, and the guilt that gnawed at me.